Comment, bienvenue. Welcome to another of our property live streams. Of course, in the studio, as ever, Hamish McClay of Search and Convey, who helped set this up in the first place, and Steve Day, our gentleman on the inside, quite literally as well as metaphorically, in Royal Artillery Quays, where he's effectively locked in due to the cladding scandal, making his property pretty much unsellable and hard to insure, as well as so many other unfortunate occurrences. Now, at the moment, the fight is on to try and get both truth and honesty all the way through this thing, although we are struggling. But before we get going, a word from Hamish.
Right. I mean, our title for this week, and good afternoon to you all, is Royal Artillery Quays, Denial in the Face of Evidence. And this is such a challenging thing, and it should not have been carrying on. This denial has been going on for 6 months, and try as much as the residents and many other people concerned have actually requested that denial be denied almost. The council will persist. Not only do they persist, as we get closer to these elections coming up, they're trying to throw, if you like, they're trying to throw it back and suggest there's nothing wrong with what they said. And basically it's the residents or anybody who tries to complain about it. We know this about the council. They've cut down the amount of time you can actually speak at a meeting. The public can speak at a meeting. And the number of people who actually sort of do the speaking as well. And any attempts that have been made to bring the topic up of cladding with Greenwich Council, they've made it go in such a way, the meetings, that it's been impossible to get in a word in edgeways about what the seriousness of the situation is.
It's a form of filibustering, isn't it, really?
Oh, absolutely filibustering. But the worst of it is alleged remediation is taking place. It's not removing the most dangerous of the panels that are in place. And it's largely because of what the council have said that basically the builders are able to get away with this shocking, both a remediation which puts pressure 2 years to actually sort it out on each of the different sort of blocks. I mean, where Steve is in Royal Artillery Quays, we'll do it another week, but we'll actually demonstrate so we can actually look out the window and see where this cladding is. It's not the topic of conversation this week. However, they're being put through this for 2 years, and it makes no bloody difference whatsoever at the end of the day. The costs are still there, the fire risk is still there, yet they've had to tolerate this inconvenience for 2 years, and half of it is because we've got council and councillors ganging up to say that it's perfectly all right to be living there.
Well, okay, I think it's high time we bring onto the stage Steve. Welcome back to the channel.
Thank you.
I believe it's turned into a right old bun fight.
Well, let's just remind the viewers what's happened. So we've got 8 tall towers at Royal Artillery Quays in Woolwich, and unfortunately, due to the watered down remediation standard, PAS 9980, they're only going to be taking some of the combustible material off. And now that same combustible material is banned on new buildings, which is a real problem for the insurance and safety of our future. And also,
as I've said on many occasions, this XPS cladding that they're leaving on is pretty close in its material content to firelighters. It's extremely flammable, and it will drip down and provide exactly the same problems that the cladding burning happened in Grenfell. Sorry to jump in there.
So you can see why we're concerned it's staying on our buildings when we're told it's being remediated. And then in addition to that, the internal walls have got defects that reports that have investigated in detail have deemed so serious they recommend prosecutions in the event of a fire. Right.
And not only that, there's fundamental lack of what would be considered normal and relevant and important on other buildings. Lack of fire safety doors. It's absolutely ridiculous. Sorry.
Exactly. No, I'm glad you mentioned the fire safety doors. That was the third thing I was going to mention. So the bottom of each staircase going up 16 stories, there's meant to be a fire door separating the staircase from the outside hallway and ultimately the exterior door in the car park.
Steve, is it not so that
missing, right?
Is it not so that the fire brigade or representative thereof say under these circumstances they wouldn't venture into there because it would be a danger to their own officers?
Yes, it puts them at risk. And the National Fire Chiefs Council have said they want all single escape stairs to be non-combustible in terms of material. However, so that's the background. So we've got a load of defects that are unlawfully constructed. So what did Greenwich Council do? Well, we asked them to help us because we said if we've got a case against unlawful construction, so the builders did the wrong thing. It wasn't to do with the builders doing the right thing and then the regulations getting stricter. They broke the law at the time of construction, which is very important in a legal argument because you've got to say that someone has done something against the law to get redress. Otherwise, they could rightly say, well, you know, we're not going to pay. So what did the council do? They denied in a council position from the housing spokesman there, Rachel Taggart-Ryan, Councillor Taggart-Ryan, and they denied the existence of that evidence. So the evidence that the council themselves found of those missing fire doors at the bottom of the fire escape stairs, they ignored the numerous reports we sent them, including those internal defects, saying their prosecution should be considered, that's so unlawfully dangerous, and also many other reports, including from the fire brigade, an enforcement notice saying it was illegal, and also a signed court submission saying the building regulations at the time weren't followed. So they had a raft of evidence. So of course, as anyone that's followed cladding matters will know, we've spent nearly a year since May last year trying to fight the council to get them to just retract this simple position. And unfortunately, it's heated up again over the last 2 weeks because one of the councillors from my ward, West Thamesmead, because of the upcoming May election, felt she would put out a big rant about me harassing a councillor candidate, and no, not councillor candidate, a councillor, just for calling out repeatedly this evidence doesn't exist.
Is unfair because you're not calling a person out, you're calling it to their attention.
So it's a policy. Yes. And what it relied on was a letter, and we could probably get that up to one to Clive Efford. Yeah. No, it's the Clive Efford email. So
sorry, well,
the email, Gareth, the last one I sent you.
Okay, I've got it. Apologies. There we go.
Yeah, this is it. So we tried. We raised it with the council. We raised it with the CEO. We raised it with councillors. We did masses of social media, including 3 music videos, which you were involved in, Gareth. And then basically nothing. So we escalated, and I emailed Clive and I said, look, she's working for you as an MP. Please, can you have a word with her? And I refer to a full complaint to the council.
But that's a complaint to the council.
Yes.
Not about a person.
Yes. So let's read the paragraph. So it says, if you could have a word with Councillor Taggart-Ryan, I would be most grateful. We are proceeding with a full complaint. We're not asking him to do anything, but it would be much better if she just retracted this false and damaging position that she communicated in writing us voluntarily, which is the right thing to do here. Any help you could give would be much appreciated. So all we're really asking for is him to have a chat with her, she withdraw it, and then we don't have to go to a full complaint with the council. You know, it was behind the scenes and meant to actually be kinder to her than a full, sort of complaint.
And yet it was portrayed entirely differently. We have another slide here.
Yes, so this is what's happened recently then. So let's read out what Councillor Taggart-Ryan relates about that email. So she has put out publicly, this was in relation to contacting my employer requesting he discipline me. So she is now pushing out, false
It's a false narrative.
messages
A false
as a
narrative.
councillor with that authority as a councillor, and also a cabinet member, saying that I asked her employer to discipline her, which is simply not true. Now, I've asked her to take this down multiple times publicly, and she hasn't done it. It's defamatory and it's very damaging, and it has caused people to contact me and say that's really out of order. You should never have asked her employer to discipline her. But as you can see from that email, that's not what I did. I mentioned a full complaint and not ask him to discipline her. And the full complaint was a council complaint. But let's move on from that. So the next thing is Stephanie Barwise. So she's the Grenfell Inquiry Counsel for the victims of Grenfell, the 72 bereaved families. And basically, she has gone through the reports that we allege contain the building defects at the time of construction. So let's have a look at the second paragraph first, and then we'll come to the next bit. So she says, I wish to be clear that I have now read the reports. She refers to another councillor candidate, but we'll come back to that. But she says, I am clear that whilst one report incorrectly suggests the render cladding itself breached contemporaneous regulations, and this is the key, the reports do show various serious breaches in the fixing method of the cladding system and internal compartmentation defects. So right. She is in agreement with our position, and she goes further.
Basically just pointing out the evidence that is there. She's not drawing an analogous response to it. She's not coming up with opinions of her own. She's just pointing out that it's there, written in black and white. Sorry, you continue.
So so obviously she's now responding to another councillor that's come into the mix, councillor candidate for West Thamesmead Mooring. So this is coming up for the May elections, and what he's done is he's posted on a WhatsApp group basically saying that, you know, I'm misquoting a lawyer and she doesn't understand the issue, and I'm wrong that she supports me. And she clearly hasn't read the evidence. Well, she posted that, and underneath she's referenced the WhatsApp message. And so what Stephanie says is, and let's read the first paragraph now. She said, Stephen Day, I understand the councillor candidate for West Thamesmead Moorings considers my comment below and use of the words, it seems that I do not believe Royal Borough of Greenwich is incorrect in its stance that there are no reports of documented breach of contemporaneous building regulations. So she says she's not political. She's just calling out safety, and then the final paragraph, she says, I admit that I am disappointed that Greenwich Council, being Labour, whom I regard as safety focused, is not changing its incorrect stance on the unsafe towers and the rack development. Given the Nolan principles in public life, very much a Labour initiative, which one I applaud, I would expect Labour councillors and central government to now ensure critically that Greenwich position is corrected. So she 100% agrees, after not just reading what I'm putting out there, after going through the reports herself, which I sent her. And that's a position. So a leading KC from the Grenfell Inquiry, on top of all the technicals on building defects and so on, has called out not only Greenwich Council's position, but also this recent Greenwich councillor candidate for Thamesmead Moorings for basically misrepresenting her support for me, to basically smear me again. And he probably had no idea that she would find out about it. Well, Stephanie has become a very good friend of mine in my campaign, and that's just not the case. She is aware of it, and she has now rebutted it. But let's have a look. What else have I got on my attachment list there, Gareth? Yeah, let's have a look at this. So back to Councillor Taggart Ryan. So she's basically posting all over the Facebook groups the council's canned response to the no evidence of building defects. And what you can see, and this is the very disturbing thing. So if we look at the second paragraph, she says, contrary to information circulating, a dig at us. This is not to say that there are no issues regarding the construction of RAC. Indeed, everyone agrees remediation works are necessary. So what does that mean? They're saying that there are defects, which confuses a lot of people. They think they're saying there's no defects, but what I'm saying is there's no. They've said there's no defects at the time of construction.
Yes.
They're saying yes, there are defects, but and this is the crucial thing. They're implying that it's because the regulations have got stricter, and that the builders, Barratt, have done everything right, and that it's just the fact that Grenfell has caused the regulations to change, which is insidious because that invalidates our court claim and proceedings if we want to claim that the builders have done the wrong thing.
If I may simplify it, what they're indicating is that they're agreeing that there are problems now, and there are problems then. It's just that the methods of the strictures that they were following back then weren't strict enough. And it just so happens that they're stricter now, so they're putting their hands up. Oh well, it's changed, so I guess we better do something about it now. But it wasn't against any of the strictures we were working against before, which is entirely untrue because it was against those. And so it's a fundamental issue here.
Absolutely, but you can see how insidious this reply is. And then if we look at the first paragraph, sorry, if you could just go back to that. Yes, it says. And this is basically the slap down on my campaign and our campaign at RAC. It says the council is concerned, they're not concerned, that comments made on behalf of the council have been misinterpreted or misconstrued. So they're also casting doubt on the campaign.
Yeah.
Basically, so they're starting with that we don't know what we're talking about. They're confusing the issue, saying that, of course, there's defects. There's a whole load of scaffolding up. How on earth do people think we don't think there's defects? But holding the same position that there's no evidence of unlawful construction. So therefore, their position is, yes, there's defects, but Barratt's done everything right, and you've got no chance to get them to take any more off than they're allowing you to get off. And that is what the council have done to us. Now, we have pushed the council, we've pushed the MPs, the local MP Abena. She knows all the issues and she hasn't come back to us. And then we've had some support from the Grenfell Tower Trust. They write the price, and they publish this on Twitter. I don't think we got a picture of this, but I'll read it out. It's only a sentence. It says, the price of not listening has cost us 72 people dead and hundreds losing their livelihood. And this is addressed to Greenwich Council. Do the right thing. Listen to your residents, right?
Well, that's the thing, you see. They're trying to do stuff in spite or despite rather than through listening and taking note. There was a last note thing you had in my list.
Yeah, so this is interesting now. Yeah, so I don't know how much information we've got to back the point, but it's an observation which is worth investigating. So let's have a look at what he says. So he's saying in relation to the council and what we're putting out on social media, Matthew Pennicock, the Greenwich MP, is not only the local MP, but was the Labour spokesman on cladding whilst in opposition, which is true because he was working with us at RAC. And then this is it. Developers are not being held to account for having built unsafe buildings, which in some cases did not even comply with regulations in place at the time. Those same developers continue to be granted planning for new buildings in the borough, despite the previous government rightly saying they would not allow this. It's a real shambles. And he's saying there's a huge issue in Greenwich with unsafe buildings. Now, it's only an observation and a comment, so we have to, it needs to be verified. But if this is the case, and he seems to be a lawyer, general counsel, so maybe he does know a little bit more, then it's a shocking observation. And, we've mentioned a couple of times on Cladding Matters, the development just down the river from us, that the council actually took a different view and actually made the developer for a while.
Right.
They said you're going to have to rip it down and rebuild some of it because they got didn't keep to the plans. And then the developer convinced Anthony, that the leader of the council, to change his mind, which he's done. And but what's the issue here is you've got 1,000 residents in unsafe buildings. You've got a load of reports. They go to the council. The council firstly undermines their motion by pulling out at the last minute. A Labour councillor co-signed it and then pulled out our line so it couldn't be heard. Then in a full council meeting, the Conservatives did another motion, and then during that council meeting, they tried to smear me in front of 100 of my residents that had come to watch, and said the London Assistant Commissioner did not give you an enforcement notice confirmation, which was not true, because she had. I got the email and I was going to hold it up in the council, but they wouldn't let me speak. And after that, the motion was heard, but right at the end of the meeting, sort of at 10 o'clock at night, I was only given a short amount of time, and then it was completely dismissed by the Labour vote. And then I was threatened with harassment, and then they denied the evidence existed. And then multiple times I've tried with the residents who have also written in to get it retracted, and they put out these statements, that gaslight us, as we've seen. They've given the fake impression that it's the defects aren't due to Barratt doing anything wrong. Barratt's done everything right, and it's just the regulations have got stricter. They've said we have misinterpreted and misrepresented them, which isn't true. And finally, you've got Rachel, Councillor Taggart-Ryan, rewriting the truth about the email I sent her boss, saying that I asked the boss to discipline her. And finally, a new councillor candidate for West Thames Mooring, saying the Grenfell Inquiry Council that's backed me doesn't back you.
All right, so look, we need to call this the time, I'm afraid. Before we do that, I want to issue an invite to any representative from Greenwich Council. If they would like to come on here, we will give you the floor and listen to you acutely, not interrupt, and allow you to put your case here, because it seems very clear, A, that you're not listening to your residents, B, that you're not willing to retract statements which are blatantly untrue, easily provable. The evidence is there. It's we don't have to make it up or go searching very far. It's very visible. And B and C, and this is most important of all, you're not working with the very people who are promoting the welfare of the residents of RAC and other similar blocks. Now, we would love you to come on here, because obviously we've misunderstood. We've misunderstood the assignment, and you are going to set us straight. So I'm going to invite you unreservedly. I will stay stum. I will not say a word, and you will be able to come on here and set us all straight as to why it's fine to leave flammable panels, XPS panels on these things. Why that is supposed to be an acceptable way forward. Why it is acceptable not to have fire safety doors on these blocks, and why that was never in contravention to the original safety briefings back when that was built. I would absolutely love you to come on here and do that, and I'm sure, Hamish, you're in agreement with that. Hamish,
well, the thing was something we said last week. We had an open invitation there, not just necessarily somebody from Greenwich, but somebody within the industry who can turn around and say why this is. But this is not. We've got a situation at the moment. I mean, Steve's trapped because he's actually in a flat that's basically going through these procedures. So he's trapped within that now. We hadn't intended spending time on speaking about the council, but it won't be the only council which is undermining what the residents are saying about their properties.
But Hamish, this is the end of the wedge, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, because it's going on throughout what they've done. We really would be rather useful to get one of the Welsh gladiators on here, because they've had some systematic they systematically spoke to their government, which I can't remember what they call it. Is it synod? They call it. I can't remember what it's called.
Synod, isn't it? It's a synod, isn't it?
However, I don't know what the agreement is, but it would appear that the council, if you like, the government, is the Welsh government, have actually listened to people campaigning relative to the cladding. The local council aren't doing it. The MPs aren't doing it. Other than as we know, there are some MPs, but not attached actually to sort of the area where sort of Steve lives particularly. But but it's the Labour government themselves at the top of all of this who are really allowing all of this to go on. And for whatever reason, there is no need for it. Just a simple statement needs to be retracted. It was unsafe at the time of building. And basically, all we need to do is retract that one single statement, and all of this, everything else would go away. Not necessarily, because still the property is not being remediated the way it should be.
At least we be working from a position of truth and clarity. Thank you so much, Steve, for, as ever, being, oh dear, apologies, for being absolutely in the midst of it and fighting for peace. And I appeal to all residents of RAC to please see the truth of what Steve was trying to achieve here. It's not personal aggrandizement, far from it. It's about trying to achieve safety for now and safety moving onwards into the future. Thank you, Hamish McClay, for having taken notice of that and helped set up this channel, which is to help bring to light the very truth of the situation. And I thank you guys for watching. I see a bunch of you flooding in and out. I guess this is one of those Fridays. Please do watch back. You'll see, if you look back on the over time on the channel, which is Spilling the Proper Tea, which is on YouTube, you can go back and look back over previous issues of that, and you can see how we built up to this moment. The truth needs to come light. In the words of David Duchovny on an old television show, the truth is out there, and we will find it and bring it to light. Thank you much for everyone watching, and until next time, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please, at this difficult time, look after your mental health. Until next week, goodbye.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll plunge through the moon.